a couple months. And I did fly some OV-10 missions over the trail with the outfit that was out in the Confidant. But the sad point is, within 3 months, all 6 guys that were really the top-notch guys at the Nang, all 6 were down, 5 of them were dead. So that was just this and that. But I mean, the losses were just staggering. So anyway, I did some math because I'm a numbers geek and did my calculations, and based on which units I was in and which loss rate, the chance of me sitting here is right around 51%, based on the loss rate for our outfit for guys not making it back. But the beauty of flying in the Air Force and why we had it so much easier was you strap on the airplane, you go fight the war, they shoot at you. If they miss, you come home and you go, that was exciting. If they hit, you don't come home. That's it. The closest I saw was when I was down there watching these guys get shot, close range to Green Beret support. I remember one time I was down in amongst them, it was a trap. They came running, and I watched this whole unit. It was like surreal. It was like some kind of a movie. These whole bunch of guys running with their rifle, what we call port arms, the AK-47s, and there was maybe 30 of them coming down this grassy knoll. And I told the gunship, take them. And I was down lower than I should have been, and I heard this go overhead. And what we call flechette rockets, they're called nails. These, rather than having a rocket with a high explosive, it would open up and it was like a bunch of roofing nails, but like there'd be 500 nails to a rocket. And they all just fell down like that. It was just like this, then this flash of red, and all these 30 guys just went down. They were just shot full of nails. Like you took a nail gun and just nailed them all. That was like surreal. And I was 200. It was like at the end of the block. I mean, it was that close. So that's how close, up close and personal I was. At Da Nang, I had a case where a rocket went in and put dirt on my roof, and it was kind of annoying. You hear the rockets kind of walking around base when they have rocket attacks. And one day I went out to look at the rocket attack. As I stepped out the door, I heard ting, and part of the building came off next to where I was standing, about 6 feet away from one of these 122 rockets they were shooting there, and so it exploded in one piece, and it went out, landed in the street in front of me. I was up on the first balcony. It hit, and part of the building came off, and maybe I shouldn't have done that, man. I should have stayed indoors. And another time, I heard part of the building in our bedroom, the second tour, we were on the west side of the base at Da Nang, and a piece of the building came off. But, we had a lot of close calls. I had cases where these bursts of fire, you move the airplane around. Was one I just lucky. You're supposed to keep doing these turns so they can't guess where you're going. Well, I did one like this, and I turned this way, but rather than staying in a turn, I put top rudder, so it looks like I'm turning, but I was going this way, and a clip went by, and you can see that there's like the rocket pads in here. Well, 3 rounds went by between my rocket pod and me. So that's maybe 6 feet out there, and it went by me, and it was probably the same gunner who shot down my bunkmate, because it was the same location. It was like a couple weeks later, a few weeks later. So it was a case where, whoa, if I had really been in a turn, those rounds would have all hit in the cockpit. And the story, and I had a case another time where it was terrible weather out there. It was dark at night, and I'm just driving along thinking, this is boring, but I've got to be out here. And suddenly there's this, and this flash, and overhead. What was that? And I suddenly realized that there was this red glow went by. It was tracers going by, and they went between my propeller and my airplane. Maybe 2 on one side and 1 on the other. So the only reason I said why did the propeller turn red like that? And of course it went away. It's because they were between my propeller and me. That's why the reflection was off the inside of the propeller. So I had a lot of close calls, but they missed. So that's the bottom line. And then after that, I finished my tours. The Air Force Academy wanted me to come teach chemistry, so I went to Davis for graduate school, got my degree in chemistry, went back to the Air Force Academy and taught chemistry, taught flying to cadets, and coached rugby. And then from there, I got stationed to Travis and flew the C-5, that's the one that's bigger than a 747, and flew that for 8 years and then retired. And here I am. So, end of story pretty much on timeline.
I have one question.
Sure, please. Go ahead.
Do you think this war was worth for fighting?
Well, it's up to our government to decide what wars we should be in. And the answer isn't to protest that if you're in the military, you can choose not to be in the military, but we had a draft. So, I didn't like we pursued the war. I thought, back in those days, we had this thing of the domino theory, that if South Korea becomes communist and South Vietnam becomes communist, the whole Asia will become communist.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I can see why people thought that, but it really annoyed me that we didn't try to win. The argument was, well, if we win this war, then we'll maybe tick off the Chinese and the Russians. And remember, we ticked off the Chinese last time when we had the Korean War. We basically had taken all of Korea. We were basically at the north end of North Korea when the Chinese came in with all those troops, and basically almost kicked us off the peninsula. So we didn't want to get the Chinese fired up and have them helping out the North Vietnamese, and we don't want to get nuclear with Russia. So, but I guess you have to make some decisions. Well, if you're not going to fight a war, then what are you doing fighting a war?
Yes.
Yeah.
And it was really sad because we weren't allowed to win, and for the guys on the ground, it was really terrible. And I have some terrible memories of my first tour jogging to stay fit around the runways, about 5 miles around the 2 runways. And I'd watch these C-130s come in with these big plastic bags full of bodies coming out of Asher Valley, and the stench of formaldehyde. And they would just, this whole convoy, traffic jam, up to the mortuary. Their job was to take these guys out of Asher Valley, zip them in body bags, bring them back, take them off the airplanes, take them to the mortuary, they clean them up, verify ID stuff, and then package them up and put them on coffins and ship them back to the States. You know, it's just so sad. These guys were doing what they were supposed to do, but there was no reason for them to be doing it. And on the other side, those poor North Vietnamese kids, I mean, these kids, you know, if they got killed, they got killed. If they got wounded, they were told to hang out. Or if they got, well, maimed, they were told hang out till the war's over because you can't go back to North Vietnam. It'll be bad for morale.
Yeah.
So it was really tough on both sides. And so the answer to your question is pick your wars and don't get in the war unless you plan to win. It's a war. It's not to burn all those people. And their losses were much worse than ours.